What's up guys, this episode we're diving into Active Storage in Rails 5.2, and this feature is very welcome because file uploading is something we've had to rely on third-party gems for, but it's such a common feature to upload files to your Rails app that it is now finally baked into Rails core. So we're going to be talking about that, and if you've ever used Paperclip or Carrier Wave or Shrine, it's all very similar and you don't have any real reason to upgrade if you're happy with those, but if you're building a new application and you want to use this, go for it. It is really well integrated into Rails, but it's still got a bit of rough edges, and there will be some things that will certainly improve in the next few releases, I am sure. So let's dive in to setting this up and taking a look at how it all works. So basically, when you create a Rails 5.2 application, you can run Rails ActiveStorage Install to create the migration to add Active Storage's 2 tables to your application. If you upgrade from Rails 5.1 or 4 or whatever to 5.2, you can run this to get those migrations as well. So if you run this command, if you already got the migration, it's not going to do anything, which I do. And that migration looks like this. It's going to create 2 tables, one called blobs, one called attachments, and the blobs are going to store all the metadata around a file that you uploaded, like the file name, file size, content type, all that good stuff. And then the attachments is the join table between your models, whatever they might be, and the uploads that you created. So that's going to be as simple as it is. They keep track of that, and the reason this is great is because it means that you don't have to create migrations whenever you want to add a new upload to your model. So you might want to add avatars or uploads to a post or attachments or images or any of that stuff. You don't have to make any more migrations or anything like that. No more database changes when you want to add new file uploads, and that is really nifty. So this is something that I think is really pretty well designed and really makes it handy to go add file uploads. So we can go to a model like user and simply say has one attached avatar, and you are good to go. That's going to set up the methods and the associations so that when you upload an avatar on a user, it will go ahead and create the attachment record and the blob records in the database, and that's kind of awesome. So let's take a look at an example of what you have to do to set this up going forward. So first off, you have to go to config, environments, development, and production, and look for the ActiveStorage.service line if you create a new Rails 5.2 app, or add this line if you upgraded to Rails 5.2. And you're going to set this to the key in your config storage.yaml file. Now this is where you will have your defined locations of file uploads. So I've got a few examples in here. By default, you'll only get test and local because they don't know your credentials for AWS. They don't know if you even want to use AWS S3 to upload files to. So the defaults are, of course, to upload to your current machine's file system wherever Rails is living. So that is pretty straightforward, and that's good in development and test. But in production, you probably want to go to S3, DigitalOcean Spaces, Google Cloud Storage, Azure, or something else. And these are the main options that you have right now. You have S3, you can use DigitalOcean Spaces because it's fully compatible with S3. You can use Google Cloud Storage or Microsoft Azure. And you also have a sweet mirror service for redundancy. So you can have your files uploaded to 2 or 3 of those services at the same time, and that will take care of any mirroring that you might want to do. So I would definitely encourage that if you want redundancy, and you just basically set up 2 of these options and then define them as mirrors down below in the mirror service, and you would use mirror in your config environment's production file as your service. So what I have set up here is one for DigitalOcean, where we can use DigitalOcean Spaces. I have my bucket in NYC3, and we can define in our credentials.yaml.encrypted file the keys for that. So you can run Rails credentials edit, which I will link to in the notes below, because if you haven't seen that episode, the new credentials file replaces your secrets.yaml. You could use your secrets.yaml if you're upgrading from an old application. This is a nice way to encrypt your keys and still keep them inside of your Git repo. So we'll be using DigitalOcean in production, but I'm going to be using the local disk for development. And one option here that I want to point out is host is sometimes required in local because if you're ever running on a different port, it isn't smart enough yet to notice that you're using a different port. So sometimes if you're using, say, Foreman, you would have to define your host here so that it links to localhost 5000 instead of localhost 3000, which is the default. So keep that in mind. You may or may not want to add the host option in here for that because for whatever reason it doesn't know, and I feel like that's probably something that will get fixed in a future version. But right now you might have to manually get that fixed, otherwise you'll get 404s in development. So that's all you have to do to set up ActiveStorage and configure it. And then you can go to your models and define your attachments. So here I've got a post class, which is just simply title and body, and there's no other attachment fields on it. And we can simply say has one, say attached header image, and we can also say like has many attached uploads or files or photos or whatever you might want to call them. You can just have those added like so. So we'll have maybe blog posts with uploads that we have, and to accept these in your controller, you'll go to your post controller, you will go down to your param section, and for any of the has ones, you'll just have a header image or whatever your name is, just like any other attribute. It's going to accept the uploaded file like so, but with your uploads, it actually is going to be an array, and so in those with has many, you can just simply say uploads, and that gets pointed to square brackets. Then we can go open up our form to add that to it. So let's create one at the top for our header image. We'll have header image, and that will be header image. Instead of a text field, we want a file field, of course. And we can go down underneath and add our uploads. And this one, I want to add the multiple is true option, and that will tell our browser that we can select multiple files for that. Now, I've got a post created already, and we can go edit the header image by uploading, some sort of picture here, and then we can go to uploads, and we can maybe let's just grab a PDF, an image, and an SVG, and add those as attachments. So we'll go ahead and upload those. We'll see that our post was successfully updated. And if we go to our logs, scroll down to the bottom, we'll see that this was uploaded. We get a patch, and our uploads actually are doing some interesting things. So it's deleting the existing attachments from there, and then it's going to disk-storage and uploading files. We'll see it create ActiveStorage blobs with the metadata of image, JPEG, and all that good stuff. Then it goes down and updates our post after it's created our attachments that are the join records between the two. So it's creating all of these associations for us, and our attachments, you can see the record type is for post, uploads, record ID, so it's doing a polymorphic association here, and it's saying, well, this is for the uploads attachment type with the name field, and then the association is for the record field. It's kind of cool how that works. You can see that it is running all of that when we do our update, and then at the very end, it's included several analyze jobs for each one of those files that we did. So it's doing some analysis on those, automatically integrating with ActiveStorage, by the way. And so you're going to want to run Sidekick if you're using that to do some of this in the background. You can also just leave that alone, and it will run in your regular Rails process immediately as it gets it. So this is all nicely integrated with with Rails, so you can see that it's using ActiveJob and all of that, but we need a way to display these images. Now, one cool thing about this is if you go to the post show page, all you have to do to display an image is say @post.header image image tag for @post.headerImage. You don't have to do the .url or thumb like some of the file uploading tools do. You actually just say image tag and you pass in the image object and you're good to go. So this will display the image. It's kind of huge right now, so maybe it'd be nice to resize it. You can go to your gem file and add the mini magic gem to your gem file, and that will allow you to resize images. So now if we go back to post show, after you've installed mini magic and you've installed image magic on your laptop or your server, that will be required. Mini magic uses image magic as a separate command to resize images. So keep that in mind. Then we can say variant, and we want to maybe resize this to 400 by 400 and display that in the browser. So now we get a 400 by 400 image. You can use image magic's options to do other types of cropping, or maybe you want it to resize to fit, resize to fill, whatever you want. You can use all of those options from mini magic inside this variant method. And so the variant method only applies to images though, and that's something that we will notice if we were to go down here and create a div for all of those other uploads. So our post has uploads, and if we were to loop through each of these uploads and do the same thing with the image tag, we're going to get an error here because we've uploaded a few things that are not actually images. So we get an invariable error on this upload, and if we look at the upload itself, you can see that we don't really know which one it is, but if you say upload.blob, you'll be able to figure out that this is our PDF that we uploaded, and it is not resizable because it's not an image, and you can't resize a PDF. But there is built-in functionality for previewers, which is really cool. So here is what we can do. We can say upload.variable. This is going to say, well, is our upload variable, like can we resize it with mini magic? And if that's true, we can do that. Or we can also ask if the upload is previewable. And in this case, we can do preview instead of variant and resize that. And so what this is going to do is create a preview image of our PDF. It will use a thing called MuTools or MuTool. If you want to install that, you can go to your terminal and run brew install mu pdf-tools, and also ffmpeg if you want to create previews of videos. You can use that tool to extract a thumbnail from a video and resize that as your preview. So you can install these two tools on your machine, and then as long as they're available, you'll be able to use them to resize and preview things. So if we do this, we will now get our prawn PDF example right here, and it's displayed and it's cropped to maximum of 400 by 400, and it's a little narrower since we're not using resize to fill or anything like that in mini magic, but it does work. And you can click on these, or well, we can create these and make them clickable, so we can have links to these images as well. We can do the image like so, and then we can link to upload here. And if we do that, we will be able to click on this image and then open it up, and you'll see the route for this is /rails ActiveStorage disk, and then our big key for this file, and you get a little bit of information about it at the end. So this is pretty cool, and you can also change things like the disposition. So right now it's inline, which is going to display in the browser, but you can change that disposition to, I believe, attachment, which will cause your browser to download it instead of displaying it. So when we link our PDFs here, you might want to force that PDF as downloaded instead. But we're now going to use, instead of just upload directly, we're going to use a new helper that you can use, Rails blob path. This URL helper is going to point to the ActiveStorage blob. You give it a blob, and then you can say disposition attachment, and then that URL And then that URL now will download the PDF directly instead. So that's kind of nice for any of those where you may want to force it to be downloaded. You can do that. You don't have to do that with PDFs. That's just a good example of how that might work. Now, otherwise, we also want to handle any cases where it's not variable and it's not previewable, and we just want to do that. So maybe in this case, that's one of the ones where we want to use the Rails blob path, and we just want to link simply to the upload itself. And so this case, we might have our upload dot file name, and we just want to link our gorails.svg file here, because it turns out that SVGs are not variable and they're not previewable, and so that makes them kind of a weird case here, because technically you can resize them, but you can't resize them with Minimagic because they're vectors. They can be scaled automatically and they don't need to be resized with a tool like Minimagic, and so they kind of fit in this weird case. But ActiveStorage still has another helper for us. You can actually check if image is, or an upload is an image, and then in that case, we know that it's not variable, so we can have an image tag for the upload, and maybe in this case, we set the image tag's width in HTML to 400 instead of setting that. And so we could do that and go back to our browser. And now we'll see the SVG is displayed here appropriately, but it's a little bit different than you might have expected because SVGs are kind of an odd type of image, but we got the width of 400, it will still match that and everything will still work as you might expect it. So you really will have to keep in mind how you want to display and render those uploads, but that is up to you. You have quite a bit of flexibility with that, and I believe there are also some more helper methods like this to figure out what types those uploads might be so that you can add your own views for each one of those options. That works really well and does quite a good job of all of that. Now, one last thing I want to mention here is that with the previewers, you have just PDF and video formats right now. We might do a future episode building a previewer for something like, I don't know, a slideshow. Like you could maybe take and upload a keynote slide deck, and then maybe we'll pull out the first slide as an image. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments below. I'm sure someone's going to be working on adding more of those file types in there, which would be really cool to see as we go forward. And last but not least is you want to be able to delete these images, and one of the things with that is that you have a method. So if we grab this post, you have a method on your association, so a header image can call purge or purge later. Purge later is generally the better option to go, and that will create a background job to run and delete it later. But if you need it to run immediately, you can just call purge and that will delete that file. Now, same thing goes with the uploads. If you want to delete all of them, you can call purge on them and then it will delete all of them. Or you could say like your first upload and purge that one. And so if we do that, we can go back to our browser and you'll see our prawn PDF is gone, and that just deleted a single one. But if we did uploads.purge, you can see it will delete all of them and all of our files are gone. So keep that in mind. That is how you delete your files from ActiveStorage. You can basically pass in the ActiveStorage blob ID. So when we're in the browser and you're doing one of these uploads, you can actually print out the upload. So for example, post header image ID 18, that would be the thing we could go purge. We can then look up ActiveStorage attachment.find 18. It should give us the exact same one back, the header image, and you could call purge on that to delete it. So if you ever want to go and delete individual ones in the UI, you could actually just submit over the IDs for the ActiveStorage objects and look them up through ActiveStorage and have them deleted like so instead of going through your model. That will work pretty well. As far as I know, some of the other gems offered the ability for you to flag attachments as delete, and so then you could submit your post and then it would delete those attachments. But as far as I understand, ActiveStorage doesn't have that ability right now. Maybe it'll be something added as a future feature, but for now it's easy enough for you to create a new controller for attachments or uploads, then look up the ActiveStorage attachment by ID and then call purge on it if you want to individually delete items. That's not very hard. Now, the last thing that I want to mention is that we will be talking about direct file uploads in a future episode. That one's kind of more focused on JavaScript side of things, and we can even integrate that with something like your WYSIWYG, like you might use with Tricks or something as well. So the direct file uploads are pretty straightforward, but we'll take a look at that in a future episode. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, or take a look at the Edge guide on Rails, or the official guide whenever Rails 5.2 gets released, hopefully in the next couple weeks. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.